what we're seeing in the news is folks are calling for the, the AI bubble and so on. And Andrej Karpathy, who he's worked for OpenAI, he's worked for Tesla, pretty famously was on a podcast this week saying, a lot of folks are calling it the year of the agent 2025, but really he was saying, hey, it's a lot more like the decade of the agent. And so we thought that might be an interesting kickoff topic. And so with that, I thought I'd just sort of kick it out to you guys and get your perspective on that alone. I know you have a unique perspective on that. What's your reaction to that?
Well, first, I'll say this. I mean, he's one of the brightest minds, I think, in AI for starters. So respect.
We all agree.
Yeah. If you follow him, if you follow kind of his career, just very, both hands-on and smart, and can apply these concepts and explain it, right? Like his passion is actually education, teaching people.
Right.
So a ton of respect for him. I think just to kind of summarize some of the salient points from the interview, and it's been almost a week, or has it been a week? I can't remember.
About a week.
I think, he made lots of points, but the point that a lot of people are picking on is sort of like AI is not all the way there to build agents. It's not all the way there to do novel research, or to, in the coding world, to take over as the thing that writes a lot of the code. And I'd say for me, the biggest, I would say, gap in what he described and what I experience is, I think in the coding world, if you look at the vast majority, certainly enterprise applications, you're not trying to build an out of distribution solution, something that's novel. You're building something that's, to a large degree, follows a blueprint that's been around and honed over years, right? And blueprint in a big sense of architecture. And then there's lots of techniques and packages and technologies that evolve. But when we write enterprise software, it's amazing how well attuned the latest models are to the code that you're trying to write. So where Karpathy describes, his frustration with he was building NanoChat, and which is distilling the essence of how to build a language model that follows instructions. And to distill the essence of it, right, he was unable to leverage AI assistants to do that really well, because they mostly want to write boilerplate, follow a well-known pattern,
right,
be overly helpful in places where he didn't want to be helpful. So wasn't a great tool for the job. But for the jobs that we see, it's exactly what we want in many cases. It's exactly like, don't invent yet a new way to think of how to do CRUD operations or analytics, or automate workflows, right? Those are patterns that the language model has learned by reading a ton of code, among other things, right? And that boring is great. It's it's exactly what we need in many of the enterprise cases. So I would say my biggest sort of contradiction to his punchline is the technology as it exists today, we're actively using it and seeing huge productivity boosts and an ability to crank out features that are immediately usable by enterprise, as opposed to waiting for AI to get better before it really takes over much of the percent of the work that is being done in coding.
Jim, what was your takeaway?
I think mine is maybe a little bit simpler point of view. If your definition of an agent is, I'm going to have a fully functioning employee I'm going to reliably go have them do everything an employee does today, yeah, we're miles and miles away from that. But if your definition is, we want to get valuable work done in the enterprise, whatever that is, and even very narrowly defined, and you've heard me say this before, whether it's work we're doing today, work we wish we could get to, or work we haven't even necessarily thought of yet, but get some valuable work done in a world where it requires that non-determinism, that the ability to sort of make some decisions, potentially use some tools. I think we're there. We have in production solutions that are delivering valuable work with companies all over the place. They tend to be very narrow and they need a lot of monitoring, but we're starting. Yes, and I agree, but I agree with the decade concept, because I think this is going to continue to expand as we go. So I think his unsurprisingly, given how smart Karpathy is, I think his expectations or hopes for what an agent is are really big.
Well, I felt like he was trying to. I felt like his perspective was as like an AI scientist. He was in his mind. The model is the LLM is the agent,
Yes.
and was going through all the problems with that.
Yeah.
And so I thought, oh yeah, but in the meanwhile, I don't think he was saying, oh, these are not useful or anything like that. I think
Yeah.
what he was saying is there's all these gaps to make it truly useful as like an employee you would hire to do a job. And I think that's interesting to me because I think it highlights the difference between where we see a lot of enterprise customers potentially and where things are in the real world. So what I would say is, and he even talks about this. It's sort of funny. He talks about demos. He goes, I don't trust any demo. I had the best demo of the Waymo self-driving you've ever seen in 2014, and it sort of still doesn't work because there's all these like he talks about the nines you have to get to for these really high risk sort of use cases. And I think what's happened is what I see happen in the enterprise is you see they see these demos and they look amazing. They look awesome, but they're sort of like the Waymo driving demo he had in 2014. And there's all these gaps and all this work that needs to be done to make agents useful. And in his mind, that needs to be done in LLM. And in our world, to get payback today, you have to close those gaps. And that's where a lot of the work, that sort of this gap between the easy demo and productive agent land, and that's a lot of what we're helping folks do.
But it's not a demo when your Tesla takes over and takes the next hour of the interstate for you. That is valuable work, if you will, that it's getting done. It may not get you in the complete drive, and that's sort of where we are with agents. It's a shades of gray discussion, not a black and white discussion. Oh, this thing didn't get me all the way to Chicago without any intervention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, clearly, when he talked about when they started with OpenAI and the definition of, what agents do, it was, this thing it is a person effectively in terms of its abilities to do knowledge work, right? In fact, he was even broader than that at the beginning. It's like we reduce it to knowledge work. Before that, it was just like any work,
right? Physical or not.
That vision is I can imagine needing a decade to get to a vision that includes all that kind of work. And meanwhile, and he acknowledges there's vast parts of the economy that can be transformed.
Yep.
So even if you take the models that are there today, you can clearly have huge economic impact.
Right.
Without new model improvements.
Yeah. Mike, we lost you there for a minute, but we'd love to get your.
That. I was
you
just
missed all my words of wisdom, by the way, while you were away.
Right. I'll be sure and catch it all. But it seems like the ROI that we are finding on use cases in enterprise is not at all dependent on the kinds of things that Karpathy is talking about, right? So it's really, if we take if the models froze, if we had nothing but the models we have right now, if they developed no further, and all we had to do was engineer around those to build out these use cases where we automate away either part of the work that people do or all of the job that some people do, we would be fine. We would be creating dynamic enterprise level changes throughout, many industries.
And we could spend a decade doing that.
Yeah. And in fact, this is an even more salient point that Karpathy didn't touch on at all, but the idea of accessing your dark data using embeddings, right? The RAG technique that's out there, that the fundamentals of that are terrible. The RAG technique itself, the RAG embeddings models are awful. They don't do at all what you would expect that they would do. They have, all sorts of mismatches, but you engineer above them and you get miraculous results, right? I'm going to lean into this as being what business has always done. Language models are today, let's admit it, they're kind of like horses, right? They have all this weird treatment that you have to do. You have to take care of them in certain ways, but they only handle certain loads. You have to know how to use them. Would a business be better off with or without a horse? Now, later on, we may have an engine, but does that mean we wait for engines to come along? No, we use the horses. We ride the horse we have now, literally, move things forward. And then when there is a cleaner, safer, faster, better, smaller, cheaper, we'll take advantage of that as it comes. But you don't wait until then. You'll be out of business. So jump on the bandwagon, use the tech that's there now, implement it, get the ROI that's there now, and get the more ROI later.
So we've crossed a new threshold here in analogies with language models as horses and bandwagons and all of that sort of rolled into one. But I pretty much agree with you.